We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including lots of offseason speculation. A lot of today's speculation revolves around goaltending. Today we're looking at the Vancouver Canucks, Philadelphia Flyers, Columbus Blue Jackets, Boston Bruins, and the Seattle Kraken. Plus, Darnell Nurse of the Oilers is facing a suspension for a play that happened last night against the Los Angeles Kings. We've heard from Logan Couture regarding the future of his NHL career. Gabriel Landeskog is back with the big club in Colorado. Lots of NHL injury updates, roster moves, signings, and other stuff, including some interesting comments from Sean Couturier on his relationship with John Tortorella, and the results are in from the NHLPA Survey. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover here in today's video. Going to be another interesting day as the NHL regular season winds down. We're getting closer to knowing all of our playoff teams, and we might, by the end of tonight, know all of the teams and possibly all of the matchups as well. Going into tonight's action, the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to be fighting to stay alive here. Of course, with the Montreal Canadiens falling last night to the Chicago Blackhawks in a shootout and only picking up 1 point, that leaves the door open for the Blue Jackets to come in and steal that last spot. The Blue Jackets play the Flyers tonight. They will require a regulation win to keep their hopes alive. If that happens, then it'll come down to the final game for both Montreal and Columbus. The Habs are home to the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Blue Jackets will be playing the New York Islanders. So, of course, at that point, if the Jackets were to get another regulation win and Montreal had a regulation loss against the Canes, the Jackets would take the spot. Still a lot of work to do. The odds are still against them, but the Blue Jackets are trying to stay alive. Here tonight in the Western Conference, the Wild, the Blues, and the Flames, 3 teams for 2 spots. The Wild are slightly safer than the Blues with a 1-point advantage. All 3 teams are in action tonight. The Calgary Flames are more likely, of course, like I said, to track down the St. Louis Blues at this point, but if the Flames win and the Blues lose tonight, it could make things very, very interesting. The Blues have gone on a crazy streak to get to where they are. For them to lose on the final game or 2 of the year would be crazy as well, but the Flames held down that spot for a chunk of time as well. But either way, a lot of our playoff teams could be determined this evening, or some of it could drag on a little bit further. We've only got 2 more days left in the regular season after tonight. Now, as I mentioned as well, San Jose Sharks captain Logan Couture had a press conference today and confirmed, like we suspected, that his playing days are over. He is not going to be pursuing an NHL return anymore. Theoretically, he won't be officially 100% retired until his contract expires. That still has a couple of years left on it, so he'll be an option for the Sharks to place on long-term injured reserve. Mike Greer, the GM of the Sharks, confirmed there'll always be a place for Couture if he wants to continue working in hockey with the organization. But at this point, the injuries have been too much to overcome. He hasn't played in some time. Kept trying to make a comeback, but always running into issues. He confirmed the diagnosis is what they call osteitis pubis, which is essentially the inflammation of the joint between the 2 pelvic bones, which can cause a variety of other issues as well. So it's a tough thing to overcome. Couture has been doing his best for a couple of years trying to overcome this and just has not been able to get to a point where he's able to play. So obviously, a long time in the NHL, a lot of success, over 900 games, heck of a career, lots to be proud of, and I certainly want to wish him the best for whatever comes next for him now that we know for sure his playing days are over. With that in mind, I suspect the Sharks can possibly consider naming a new captain for next season. Now, as I mentioned as well, Edmonton Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse might be out for the next game, and he might even miss a playoff game. It's hard to say, but he is facing a hearing from the Department of NHL Player Safety for a cross-checking incident that went down in their game against the Los Angeles Kings last night versus Quinton Byfield. Kind of a stupid play, in my opinion, on Nurse's part. I understand the fact that they're probably frustrated the Kings were winning by a large margin at this point, and certainly the Oilers have a lot of players out of the lineup due to injury or needing rest from injury and whatnot. Was it anywhere close to their main lineup? No. Was it anywhere near close to their best game or effort? No. But you don't need to be doing that. He basically cross-checked and kind of shoved Quinton Byfield's head into the ice. So he's going to be getting he knew he'd be getting a call from player safety as soon as it happened. So it's just irresponsible, in my opinion, considering he's supposed to be one of the leaders on that team, knowing the team's already shorthanded. They already could have missing bodies for game one of the playoffs, and now his status is unknown as well. I mean, maybe they give him one game, and he's back for game one of the playoffs. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he gets I don't think he's getting a fine, but, we'll see what comes from this. But it could be very well either late tonight or into tomorrow before we know the result. Because of the Oilers' schedule, I believe the hearing was going to be taking place late today. So we'll see what happens there. A bunch of other updates around the NHL when it comes to roster moves, injury updates, and signings and such. The Winnipeg Jets confirmed today that winger Nikolai Ehlers is out week to week. That's not good news going into the playoffs, so it's certainly questionable. Probably pretty much a guarantee he misses the beginning of their first round series. Gabe Vilardi has been upgraded, though. He's doing a little bit better than expected and has now been upgraded to day-to-day. So considering, it's only Tuesday and the playoffs don't start till Saturday, we don't have a full schedule for all the teams yet. Maybe there's a chance Vilardi can be played in game one. I don't know, but at least it's a lot more promising for sure. As I mentioned, Avalanche captain Gabriel Landeskog, after a successful 2-game stint in the American Hockey League with the AHL's Colorado Eagles, has returned to the NHL's Avalanche, rejoins the squad. Of course, getting back into some practice time now with the team. The Avalanche have their regular season completed now, so now they sit and wait for the playoffs. And Landeskog is, a possibility at this point. Will he play for sure? I don't know. I mean, they do have a pretty deep lineup. But I think, Landeskog, the emotional boost they will get from having him there is substantial. So don't be shocked if he plays in game one of the playoffs for the Avalanche. We were able to confirm today that the Jackets are signing CSKA defenseman Nikolai Makarov, who's a 22-year-old prospect who they drafted in the 5th round back in 2021. So he will be signing with CBJ. The Flyers today are expected to announce, and I believe that the announcement has come now, but earlier today we were able to confirm Devin Kaplan from Boston University was going to be signing a contract, and it was going to be effective right away. He will burn a year and get into a game action here. Also, Alex Bump has been signed from the Western Michigan Broncos and will sign his ZLC for next year and go to the AHL on an amateur tryout for right now. The Red Wings also confirmed a couple of their top prospects, Axel Sandin Pellikka and Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard, have both been transferred or signed, you should say, from the European clubs to the American Hockey League to Grand Rapids. So they will make their way to North America, and obviously I would think there's a possibility that they could end up playing for the Red Wings next year. We'll have to wait and see. The Carolina Hurricanes today have also confirmed they've recalled Bradley Nadeau, who's having a heck of a season in the American Hockey League. One of the top prospects in that league right now for sure. Obviously had a chance to play for Canada at the World Juniors. But Nadeau and Skyler Brindamore has been recalled as well. There's a possibility that Skelliter could be playing, of course, with his dad Rod being the head coach. Possibility he's going to get into making his NHL debut. The Canes play the Montreal Canadiens on Wednesday and the Ottawa Senators on Thursday. So we could see Nadeau and or Brindamore in one or both of those final games of the regular season. So some interesting information there. The Anaheim Ducks today also confirmed they've signed one of their prospects from the 2023 NHL draft, taken in the 4th round. And that's 6'6", 215-pound defenseman Connor Smith, who gets his 3-year entry-level contract. So obviously lots of injury updates and signings around the NHL today. Now, a couple other things as well that I want to get into here quickly. One player that could find himself on the move, and it could be within the NHL or it could be heading overseas. But Sharks forward Kovalenko, who was traded to San Jose from the Avalanche earlier this season during the when they made the goalie swap there for Blackwood, is not happy. And apparently he's considering leaving the Sharks organization and possibly heading to the KHL. I mean, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get another NHL or a North American opportunity first, but Kovalenko, of course, whose father played in the NHL for the Avalanche as well, has made comments to a media outlet confirming that his son is seriously considering going to the KHL for next year. So we'll see where things go on that front. And there's some Boston media confirming as well that Joonas Korpisalo is reportedly not overly happy with his role that he's been given by the Boston Bruins and the amount of playing time and starts that he got with the Boston Bruins this year. Obviously, when he signed his contract, which came from the Ottawa Senators, he was signed to be the starter in Ottawa. Well, it didn't take long to figure out that that was a bad idea, that he wasn't going to be able to live up to the contract, and that he wasn't going to be able to be the number one guy there, because it didn't take long before Steve Staios was able to trade him out. Of course, the Korpisalo contract came under Pierre Dorion under the previous regime, but after seeing what didn't work out, he was able to convince the Boston Bruins to take Korpisalo in a trade for Linus Ullmark. So obviously Ullmark has worked out well with the Sens this year, but Korpisalo, overall, his numbers aren't any better than what he did in Ottawa last year. The numbers are not great. He had his moments where he looked better, but he did in Ottawa too. The frustrating part with Korpisalo last year, he'd have a game where he looked amazing, but then he would go back to letting in a couple of soft goals every game, and it made it difficult to give the team a chance to win. So if Korpisalo is not thrilled with his role, they have Jeremy Swayman signed now on a big money contract. Now, part of it could be the fact that Swayman didn't have a great season either. And maybe he figured with Swayman's struggles, he should have been able to play more, I guess, maybe. But considering the discrepancy between the two contracts, you have to understand that Swayman's going to get a lot more rope and a lot more opportunity to play those games, to find his game, than to get the result. So if he's not thrilled with that and wants to be able to play more, I wonder if he'll talk to the Bruins and Don Sweeney about a potential trade. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, clearly Ottawa retained a little bit of money on his contract, but did he really increase his value this year? Maybe a little, but not really. So that would be difficult for them to pull off. We thought Ottawa was going to have a very difficult time doing it, and yet they included him in a trade, which brought them a Vezina Trophy winning starting goaltender, which I know to this day Sens fans are still very grateful for and shocked that they were able to pull it off. So we'll see what happens with the future of Korpisalo. Interesting interview today on RG.com from Sean Couturier. The Flyers captain was quite candid, you could say, about his relationship with former head coach John Tortorella. We know that there appeared to be at times, you could say a difference of opinion, or they weren't getting along. I mean, we saw the whole thing, which was mostly last year with the healthy scratch and whatnot. Torts is not afraid to be firm, doesn't care who you are. I don't think Torts was thrilled or really necessarily the decision driver in naming Couturier captain either. But in the article, Couturier does confirm that he says some of the quotes and say that we didn't see eye to eye. When asked about the relationship, he said it was just all right. I'm not gonna lie. There wasn't much of a relationship. Also, he says he tried to work with him and do what he could, and to do what's best for the team. Ultimately, he said as captain, that's what he felt his job was, and he tried to do that to the best of his ability. But just further confirmation, in case you needed it, that the Philadelphia Flyers captain and former head coach John Tortorella, there wasn't much there. Certainly didn't get along, and you could sense it at times. But now we know for sure, and of course Tortorella's not there anymore. And I think this is just one of many things that piled up leading to his ultimate dismissal. Now, as I mentioned as well, we also got the results today from the NHLPA Player Survey. Players are surveyed on a variety of things, including some of their top players in the game in their opinion, as well as some more fun topics as well as others. But here is a rundown of some of the more interesting categories that they were polled on. One, which arena has the best ice? It went to the Montreal Canadiens. The Bell Center was voted top ice. Edmonton, Rogers Place was number 2. Best defenseman, Cale Makar, and it wasn't even close. Quinn Hughes, I believe, was a number 2, but there was a major, major gap between the two. So obviously the bulk of the players view Makar as by far the best defenseman. I was surprised to see Adam Fox get some votes, to be completely honest. He was number 5. He only had about not even 2% of the vote, but I'm surprised he had that, to be honest. One thing that they were asked that I thought was interesting is out of the different rules that are in the Women's League, the PWHL, which rule would you most like to see the NHL adopt? And the winner was the jailbreak rule. So in case you're not familiar or don't watch the women's hockey in the PWHL, they have what they call a jailbreak rule. So if a team is killing a penalty and they score shorthanded, it ends the power play for the other team. So not only do they get the shorthanded goal, but they get their player back out of the box and the penalty is over. So the other thing that they do different is they have a 3-2-1-0 point system. So you get 3 points for a win, 2 points for an overtime win, 1 point for an overtime loss, and 0 points, of course, for a regulation loss. So the 3-2-1-0 point system was second place for what they do different in the PWHL. One question as well, which NHL player most likely to become an NHL broadcaster? The winning player was Kevin Hayes of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ryan Strome got a lot of love in that regard as well. When it comes to the best fashion in the NHL, it was a tie between Austin Matthews and David Pastrnak, so not a huge shock there. Best skater, Connor McDavid. That's pretty easy, and that's not a shocking one either. Best playmaker, Nikita Kucherov. Again, a guy who's often leading in assists and has had it over 100 in a season. That's not shocking either. Smartest player, Sidney Crosby. And for the 6th year in a row, best complete player, Sidney Crosby, with Barkov coming in second. So clearly, Sid gets a lot of love and respect from his peers as the smartest and most complete player. So that's not shocking in the least, but humbling for him, I'm sure. Best forward overall, Connor McDavid. And best goalie, this one was a little surprising, not because he's not good, but just because Connor Hellebuyck is, obviously expected to win the Vezina Trophy, and he's won before. But Andrei Vasilevsky, according to the players, is the best goalie. So that's interesting, I thought, for sure. Now, as I mentioned, lots of offseason speculation. We've already talked a little bit about it when it comes to Boston and Korpisalo, wondering if he may be looking for a move again. But we're looking at some other teams in goaltending as well. The Flyers and the Blue Jackets both expected to overhaul their goaltending departments this offseason. Philly, of course, one of the worst results in that position in the NHL. Obviously, like a lot of people said last year when Carter Hart left the team, it took a nosedive. Obviously, Carter Hart and those other players are dealing with a very serious allegation and are facing some very serious consequences. But fact is, regardless of what he is as a person, and he may be a criminal, but he was a good goaltender, and he left the team in an awkward spot from that perspective. You can never really plan ahead for a team that way, right? So, goaltending was really impacted in Philly, and they haven't quite been the same since. Fedotov has had his struggles. Kolasov's been up and down, hasn't done that much. Sammy Erson's probably the best of the bunch, but still has, consistency issues, still learning as well. So it's expected that the Philadelphia Flyers are going to be a team to watch when it comes to trying to find a experienced NHL goaltender to work with Sammy Erson for next year. I wouldn't be shocked if they move on from Fedotov or they find a way to do that. I don't know. But Erson is probably the main one that has a future there to some degree for right now. But obviously one goalie that Kevin Kurz, the writer from The Athletic, linked as being a potential trade target might be Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. He's done to 1 year in his contract. Of course, the Canucks signed Kevin Lankinen to an extension, and it's made a lot of people wonder, ever since they signed Lankinen, what does this mean for Demko? Demko's been a good goalie, battled injuries, but if Demko can find a way to stay healthy, it could turn out to be a steal. Can the Canucks afford to keep both goaltenders? Not saying for sure Demko is traded, but if the Canucks were to go down that road, you'd have to think Philly would be right there near the front of the line, trying to figure out if they can bring him into their organization. A fantastic goaltender for sure, right? So we will see. It makes a lot of sense to be somebody they target, but we don't know what Vancouver's plans are yet. Obviously, we'll learn a lot about Vancouver here, likely in the next week as their regular season comes to a close. Since they're not heading to the playoffs, we'll hear a lot of the debriefing and whatnot after the season and start to get a feel for what to expect this offseason. John Gibson, of course, is a name to watch from the Anaheim Ducks. We know he's been looking for a trade for some time. He is from Pennsylvania. It wouldn't be close to home for him. I don't know if that would be something that would be interesting to him or the Flyers. Another team when it comes to Gibson could be Columbus as as well. It's expected that Columbus is going to probably buy out Elvis Merzlikins. He's probably not back next year. Jet Greaves, who's come on strong here at the end of the year for Columbus, and if they do squeak into the playoffs, just might be their starter. Who knows? Is expected to have a role of some kind with the team next year, but they're going to likely be looking for another NHL veteran to bring on board as well. Now, Columbus could go to a goalie like John Gibson. They could also look at a guy like Demko. They could also go to the free agent market too. There won't be a ton of high-end, like younger, like starter guys, but guys who have been starters at times, like maybe like a Jake Allen or an Anton Forsberg, who they have familiarity with. Something like that might be an option for them. But Columbus obviously has had a good season under some very difficult circumstances, so we'll see if they have the fairy tale ending or if it just falls a little bit short. Either way, the offseason is bound to continue working with a lot of these young players and making this team better, but goaltending has to be stabilized if they're going to expect to take a step in the near future here as well. The Seattle Kraken are going to be another team that could put a goalie on the market, and it's probably going to be through buyout because I don't know if they can trade him, but it is expected that the Kraken are going to explore multiple avenues to move on from Philip Grubauer, whether that be via trade or a buyout if a trade can't be materialized. The Kraken also did confirm today that the organization has that Ron Francis is not going anywhere. Will be back as a GM, so in case anybody was wondering or thinking there might be a regime change in the front office there, that is not going to happen. But Grubauer, ever since they signed Joey Dufour, he's never really lived up to that contract either. So another guy. So between Korpisalo, Dufour, Demko, obviously Elvis, and some of these other guys are going to be on the move. It's quite possible we're going to see a lot of goaltenders, but a lot of their top starter guys are pretty solid. But that next tier, teams are going to be looking for help, and it's going to be difficult to figure out in some cases. There's going to be a little bit of risk involved as well, but we do expect there to be some moves made. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments down below. We'll talk further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.